Question on chat. I've heard that we need to keep our mobile phones away from us at least 2 hours before our sleep. Any thoughts on that? And also, some are using mobile phones to keep the morning alarm, and it's also impacting our health, right? Over.
Yeah, again, good. Yeah, again, good question. So it is true. In the sleep series podcast that I ran, the sleep coach as well actually recommends 3 hours. But let's be honest, most of us are on our screens almost till bedtime, right? So if you are somebody who is busy on your phone till the time you brush your teeth and come back before you get into bed, me telling you go off the phone 3 hours is not going to happen. That's extreme. Start slow, right? Start slow. Maybe start with just putting your phone away 15 minutes before bedtime, 20 minutes before bedtime, 30 minutes before bedtime, and then gradually build that until it's at least 1 hour minimum. 2 hours is great because the blue light that comes through your screen actually has an impact on your brain, and the brain thinks you're wide awake. It's kind of the feeling that you get when you wake up in the morning. And that's because, again, as a human, primitively speaking, we used to wake up with the sun and sleep when the sun would set, right? So the brain still functions in that way, thinking soon as light is exposed to your face, it's time to get up and start your day. So if you keep looking at screens like we all are right now, the brain still thinks that the day is very active and like it's the time to get things done, which is why it's called the wind down. You have to have the sleep routine which helps you wind down to sleep, which is something that is similar to the sun setting and then starting to slow things down.
Let me now kindly invite Dr. Rohan Tatsukorala. We call him to be the epicenter of this networking platform, where he's bringing in a lot of opportunities for our postgraduate students and who have pioneered this talk series for the benefit of not just students, but for the total nation in terms of interactions and networking as well. So Dr. Rohan Tatsukorala, who is the head of postgraduate school at APIT Sri Lanka. Doctor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kaushali, and I think it's an honor to host today's show. It's a brilliant group of people. We have about, I think, 400 to 500 people who watch this within a 2 to 3 day time plan. We have today a certified doctor, mbbs from Pakistan. Is the subject matter expert on human nutrition with more than 5 years of experience as a certified dietitian, health fitness specialist. She guides individuals, organizations, communities in nutrition, fitness, and modifying lifestyles. As a writer and a multilingual public speaker for over 10 years, she has over 25 publications and speaks on nutrition, healthy lifestyle, fitness, weight management, sleep, health, stress, public speaking skills, and also she has the ability of speaking in 5 languages. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dheena Sadik.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rohan. Absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation as well. And I also want to welcome and thank all the attendees and everybody on the panel as well for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I first had my experience with APIT over a decade ago when I was first invited as a keynote speaker. And it was the Toastmaster Club that I first had the experience with APIT. And now it is just amazing after a decade to be invited back after I went and got my further qualifications in nutrition. So if I can ask, I guess, a rhetorical question from everybody, is it possible to be able to enjoy eating what you like and also be healthy and fit? This is one of the biggest questions that I get, because as Sri Lankans and South Asians, something that we see is people tend to assume that, oh, when you're supposed to go on a diet, it's something that's short term and something that is just to be done for a few weeks where you suffer and then you come back to your usual life. So for me, what happened is that even while I was in medical school, I realized that a lot of people don't know what to eat. And that is why I specialized in nutrition. I was in the fitness industry for a very long time. And there was a time when in the morning I am working as a medical doctor, and in the evening I was running fitness boot camps. And then I realized the bridge between medicine and fitness to be nutrition, because one of the questions that kept coming up on a daily basis is, what do we eat? What do we eat? What do we eat? Right? This is back when I was in Pakistan running boot camps for hundreds of medical doctors and students. So then I decided to come back and specialize in nutrition and dietetics in Sri Lanka, because the University of Colombo had one of the best programs, and also something that is practical for us as Sri Lankans to be able to do on a long-term basis, right? So when it comes to nutrition, one of the things that I see is not just what you eat. There are so many elements that we look for when it comes to your nutrition. And first of all, it depends. Like every single one of you are of a different age group, a different background, different levels of activity. So there's so many different factors that come into play. So there is no cookie cutter version, as we call it, right? So then it depends on what your goals are for every single one of you, whether it's students or professionals. Currently, where are you with your health is the question, right? So one of the things we look for is the quality of your food, because what you eat really does make a difference, right? And even with the quality of your food, we can mainly divide it into the macro and the micro, right? Like the macro and the micronutrients. So as you know, the macro are the big stuff, which is your protein, carbs, and fats. The micro are the micro stuff like vitamins and minerals. So in order to have a balanced diet, it's important to make sure you're having all of these different areas covered, right? Then we come to the quantity. Once the quality has been discussed, again, this is something that has to be done on a one-on-one basis. If I am to get your nutrition assessed, it's going to take like around 30 to 40 minutes. I will get your dietary history. I will get your lifestyle history, your allergies, and so on and so forth. Once we have sorted the quality of the food that you need, then we come to the quantity. For example, is rice the enemy? A lot of people think, oh, when I'm going on a diet, I'm not supposed to eat rice. But rice is not your enemy. The quantity is the issue. There are several times when people walk into my clinic, and when I ask them how much rice they eat, guys, is it okay if I like speak a bit of Sinhala as well? Like, do we have people in the audience who don't understand Sinhala?
All can speak English, doctor. Go ahead, Dheena.
Yeah. So, for example, like, is it okay if I also like insert a bit of Sinhala? Is my question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So when people walk into the clinic and I say, "Udeta mokadda kanne," they are saying, "Bat kanawa." "Kocharakda kanne?" "Pramane." They're like, "Koppa tunak." Like, okay, dawalta mokadda kanne? "Bat." "Pramanaya kohomada?" "Koppa tunak." "Rata mokadda kanne?" "Bat." "Pramanaya mokadda?" "Koppa tunak." So if you're having 9 cups of rice a day, which is what you're supposed to be eating for 9 days, it's no surprise that obesity is on the rise in Sri Lanka. Because unlike our grandparents and great-grandparents who were so much more active than us, think about it. Our grandmas and great-grandmas, they were pounding flour. They were always on their feet, right? And so were the men. They were like physically always active. Today, work has transcribed into this. All of us here are seated predominantly throughout the day, sedentary, which means you're seated in one place. So you're not burning as much calories as your ancestors, but we are eating way more. So that results in us to gain weight compared to any other time in history. So the quantity is really important. So the enemy is not carbs or rice per se, but the timing and the quantity that you have, which brings us then to the timing. Having a large portion of carbs during your breakfast and then burning it through the day is not the same as having a massive meal at night, right? We are doing it the other way around. You have to be having your breakfast has to be your biggest meal, lunch, and then dinner has to be the smaller. So we're looking at like a reverse pyramid, right? What do most of us do? We have like a proper erect pyramid, because then you're having a small breakfast or skipping breakfast. Lunch is your rice and curry, and then dinner is the massive meal. So we're doing it the other way around, which again results in the obesity epidemic that we see today in Sri Lanka. So with nutrition, remember, it's not just about going on a diet. It's about the quality of what you're eating, the quantity of what you're eating, and the timing of what you're eating, right? And in addition to what I described with the nutrition, you also have hydration, which is water. Majority of us are dehydrated. Just because you're sitting in the AC doesn't mean that you don't need water, right? Every single one of you right now can do this particular little test, right? Take your hand and just pinch the skin on top of your wrist and twist it for a few seconds and then let go. If it instantly within 2 or 3 seconds goes within a second, it has to bounce back, then you're not as dehydrated. But for some of you, it's going to go back really slow. If that is the case, then you are dehydrated and you need to drink some water right now. Okay, that's one of the simple tests that we do. So in nutrition, hydration is also very important. Then we come to some of the myths. What are some of the myths that we have come across over the years about nutrition? For example, eggs are bad for you. Once upon a time, they said egg yolks are so bad for you, but that's not true anymore because egg has so many amazing nutrients and one yolk contains 300 milligrams of cholesterol. By the way, everybody listening, y'all can write your questions as I'm speaking and send it to Dr. Rohantha. And then in the end, we will be taking questions. So if you're having any doubts while I'm speaking, just note them down and then you can always send them to Dr. Rohantha and we will discuss it in the end. So egg yolks are not bad. It's just, you have to remember again the timing and realize that it is a superfood. A superfood is something that is healthy and nutritious and can be high in calories, like egg yolks, seeds, nuts, right? All of these things are superfoods. So superfoods are not bad. Again, it depends on the timing that you take them. Next myth is fats are bad. You know, like for example, avocado is bad and seeds and nuts. Again, this is not true because we need healthy fats. And for those of you who are probably above 30, 35, you really should be taking your lipid profile test and seeing where exactly your different types of cholesterol levels are, because then you can actually, through your nutrition, bring it to a more, reasonable number. The next myth is sugar. I remember my grandma once upon a time, she had gone on this major diet where she hadn't eaten anything and then basically got like low blood pressure and she kind of fainted. And the first thing the doctor did was like, have some sugar biscuit. Because back in the days in the 70s and 80s, people thought you need sugar for energy. And refined sugar is now proven to be more addictive than heroin. So sugar is more addictive than heroin. It's a drug. We don't need to add any sugar into our diet. You are getting sugar through fruits. You're getting sugar through your vegetables. You're getting sugar through all the carbs you eat. Bread, rice, the kurakan, the flours, your string hoppers, your pitu and your kottu, all of these carbs, when they digest, are eventually becoming sugar. So the body is getting enough sugar as it is. Adding sugar, so many teaspoons, is a huge, huge problem in Sri Lanka. Again, something that I ask people is, how much tea do you take in the day? Udeta gannawa, hawasata gannawa, samara vita wada ivara welat gannawa. Hari, kochcharadda danne seeni? They are like, hani dekak tunak danawa. So for the day, you're having 9 to 10 spoons, and each teaspoon has around 6 grams. So we're looking at 60 grams per day. For the month, how much is that? 60 into 30. That's a lot of sugar, right? That's a lot of sugar. On average, most people are having 1 kg of sugar a day. So when you guys buy your sugar, the 1 kg bag, look at that next time and imagine you're consuming all of that in a month, which is going and converting into fat and stored and making you to gain weight, right? That's another myth. The next one is salt. Salt was believed to be really bad for your pressure. Again, that has been recently proven to be wrong. Salt is actually good for you, but again, what's the quality of the salt that you have? Pink Himalayan salt is one of the best natural sources of salt compared to the iodized salt. And this can be very controversial to some people, but getting organic and the pink salt can be one of the best things you're doing to improve several factors. For example, even water absorption. You drink a bottle of water. If you're immediately using the washroom, the water hasn't been absorbed into your body, into your cells. So adding a little bit of water, adding a little bit of salt into your water can actually help with the absorption of water as well. So that covers the nutrition aspect. I just made a really like tight summary of it because this in itself is a 2-hour program. The nutrition aspect and everything that I'm going to be covering today is just a trailer of a 4-hour program, right? So I'm going to next jump into the fitness aspect. Before that, Dr. Rohantha, do we want to take any questions related only on the nutrition aspect covered?
Dheena, let's do your thing and we'll take questions at once at 7:10.
Okay, awesome. All right. So now when it comes to fitness, fitness is also something that I conduct and teach. Like it's been over 15 years that I've been in the lifestyle, you can say. I do home-based workouts. I teach home-based workouts, and I'm also into Kung Fu. I'm in the Sri Lanka Shaolin Kung Fu Association. So what I do is I teach you simple workouts that you can get at home within 30 minutes before you leave the house or when you come back from work. And I also do incorporate a little bit of the martial arts. For example, being able to balance yourself. When you're standing, can you stand with one leg that is flexed in front of you? So if you were to stand and just hold your knee like this, are you able to hold that position even for 10 seconds? Most people struggle. So when you're not even able to balance both sides of your body, right? How can you be doing those exercises which requires you to be in different positions, which is not perfectly symmetrical? So body balance, flexibility, and getting you to move, these are all important things, right? Again, it depends on so many factors. Have you been an athlete in the past? Now, some people who have done sports in school find it easier to just start in their even 30s, 40s, 50s. But for people with zero sports, I have to take a very different approach. And also, the American Heart Association recommends at least 30 minutes of moving at least 5 times in the week. So we are looking at least 150 minutes of working out for the whole week, minimum. That's minimum to keep your heart healthy. So for every one of you, if you cannot even make, I would say go ahead and block 1 hour. That's for your health. That's the investment. 1 hour in 24 hours is only 4% of your day. If you can't invest 4% of your day for your health, I mean, seriously, right? Like, what are we doing? We're all so busy. We don't even have time to make time for our health. We wait till retirement, and then we are left with paying hospital bills. I cannot tell you the number of times I have had people walk into the clinic, CEOs, multimillionaires, retired, but they're so unfit and unhealthy. They're not able to travel and enjoy the trips that they can afford without even having to think about the cost factor. So as much as all of you are aspiring to become financially successful with your careers, all of that is great, but at the same time, make a little bit of time for your health as well, because all the financial wealth that you're making without your physical, mental health is not going to be so enjoyable beyond a certain point. And I see this on a daily basis. I have CEOs and like really successful people walking in and saying, I just wish I had made some time for my health. You know, because now I can't move, I can't walk, I'm sedentary most of the time. Several individuals are obese and they're not able to even stand and do exercises. So I have had to design seated exercises for them where they're literally seated on a chair and we are like doing all these upper body workouts just to get them to move their upper body while they're seated. So hopefully none of us get there. So take this as a sign for you to start working on your fitness from today. For those of you who are into weightlifting, I don't know how many of you are into the gym lifestyle and weightlifting. For you, it's different to people who don't lift weights with a BMI, right? BMI is your body mass index. You calculate it by dividing your weight in kilograms by your height squared in meters, right? And again, this is something that has been upgraded over time. So in the past, it was said that, oh, the BMI has to be this number. And in the whole world, it was said to be 30 as the cutoff. But what people realize is that BMI originally was done on white Caucasian men, which means the white men in Europe and in the US. These tests were originally done in Europe for white Caucasian men. So the numbers are different because we as South Asians have a very different body fat percentage compared to other races. So now it has been upgraded and your cutoff is 25. It's not 30. So if you guys if you have a pen and piece of paper, or you just take a calculator, divide your weight by height squared in meters, the number that you get has to be under 25, like ideally under 23. But if you're into weightlifting, then the number is not going to be accurate because you have muscle mass. For example, me, I'm like at 25, but clearly I'm not obese because I am into weightlifting. So I do have like the muscle mass. So be a little aware of that, because sometimes people are really stressing out about these things, which are now not as black and white as they used to be, right? Next, we move to sleep hygiene. Sleep is another very important topic, very important topic. So I want you guys to imagine 3 circles overlapping, a Venn diagram, right? Earlier, it was thought that nutrition, exercise, and sleep were all 3 equally important. Now that has been like completely dissolved. There's a new version of looking at it, which is, I want you to imagine a pyramid. The base is sleep, then comes nutrition, and just at the top of the pinnacle of that pyramid is your exercise. So you can be working out like an athlete. You can be eating super clean, but if you're not sleeping enough, you're still not going to see the results. Just last week, I met a friend who's around 42, who has been super fit. He was into martial arts, he was into lifting weights, and he looked like an athlete. He got a heart attack. This isn't the first time we have heard someone who is super health conscious getting a heart attack. Why? He has hardly had 3 to 4 hours of sleep at that time, right? And his body crashed. So be very aware, if you keep doing this, that it will lead to disaster, because when you're sleep deprived, you get stressed. That's a whole other topic, Dr. Rohantha. When you get stressed, what happens? Your body releases something called cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol, when it's beyond a certain point, has 2 effects. One, it makes you increase your body fat percentage if you are stressed. And number 2, the guys are not going to like to hear this, it brings your testosterone down. Your testosterone is going to be so low, you're going to have really low energy, and also obviously have a negative impact on your sex drive. And this isn't just for guys, it also affects women as well, because even women do have a certain amount, trace amounts of testosterone, which we do need for our energy. So for anyone who hasn't been sleeping enough, it's no surprise that they're not having enough energy. They don't have the mood to even work. You're irritated, right? So take your sleep very seriously. And for those who want more details on this, there's an app called Clubhouse. If you're not familiar, I actually ran a whole sleep series on that with a sleep coach. So the sleep coach from the UK called Dave Gibson studied 60 books on sleep. And I had the pleasure and honor of having a podcast. We were co-hosting, and we have a whole bunch of rooms that we have saved. You guys can go watch the podcast or listen to the podcast if you want. And some of the things that I wanted to cover from that is that the sleep coach Dave said, there's no such thing as covering up on sleep you missed. So sleep debt, what is sleep debt? Sleep debt is throughout the week when you haven't had enough sleep, Monday to Friday, you're busy, you have deadlines, and you have all kinds of stuff happening. You're like, I'll catch up in the weekend. I'm going to sleep in the weekend. Well, guess what? There is no such thing. You don't get to catch up on sleep missed, because when brain scans are taken of people who even had one night's disturbed sleep and deprivation, it showed a different color. It showed red compared to somebody who had a good night's sleep. And I mean, I'm guilty of this as well, right? Literally last night, I didn't get much sleep. So it's no surprise that we're all human. We're going through this together. But just be aware and don't make it something that's normal for you. Once in a while, you might go out with friends. You might have like some office party. You might have something happening which is going to keep you up. But if it's an everyday thing, then eventually it is going to be unhealthy on the long run, right? And also, like, depriving yourself of sleep is going to cause weight gain. Remember that. Every time you're staying up watching that Netflix show, every time you're staying up playing that game, every time you stay up drinking, every time you stay up doing whatever, Remember that if you do that often enough, it is going to cause you to gain weight, which is why a lot of people come and say, I don't know what it is. I'm not eating much compared to my 20s. I'm eating the same, but I'm just gaining weight. I think it's the age. Well, it is in some ways, because your metabolism, the way your body processes food, is changing as we age. And guess what is the age when you start to age? The number. It's actually 25. So from the time we are 25, our brain cells start to deteriorate. But the good news is you actually get to reverse it if you eat healthy, if you exercise on a regular basis, and if you are doing all of these things that I just mentioned with the whole lifestyle. So for everybody who's listening, take this as the wake-up call. Take this as the sign you've been waiting for, because it's never too early to start. It's never too early to start. Like, I wish I had started earlier with the whole lifestyle. I was active in university. I was in sports. I was in the soccer team. I was in the cricket team. I was in basketball. But even with all that, I didn't know how to do a proper squat. I didn't know how to do a proper push-up. I wasn't fit. You can be slim. You can look good from a distance, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily fit. It doesn't necessarily mean your muscles are healthy, right? So if you're not able to do 10 to 15 proper squats, if you're not able to like really work out and challenge your muscles, you're not fit. And if you're not fit, what's going to happen is your muscles are going to overage, deteriorate. And after 35, there's something called muscle, and I'm going to wrap up with this. After 35, there's something called muscle atrophy. What does that mean? It means every year we are losing 1 to 2 pounds of muscle mass. So sometimes, I'm sure many of you have come across an uncle or some distant relative. They look the same in the sense that they haven't really put on, they haven't really lost so much, but it's not necessarily a good thing if a person is the same weight. Now, 25 and I'm 35 and I'm 45 and I'm 55, right? That's not a good thing. Why? Because just because you're the same weight, it doesn't mean that your body is as healthy, because you have lost muscle and you have gained fat to replace that, right? So it's not like muscle is converting to fat, which is what some people think, but rather imagine, right? Like if you take a cross section of your arm and you look at it, there's some muscle, there's bone, there's fat. So when the muscle is shrinking because you're not challenging and exercising it, eventually you're increasing fat because you're not working out, you're not challenging the muscles. So it's very important to do some kind of resistance training, which means you lift some weights, you do some workouts which challenge your muscle. Just going for walks is not enough. It's not enough, especially for us who are like sitting all day, right? We sit so much that we are sedentary, as it's called. So make sure that you do look into something at least 2 to 3 times a day where you challenge your muscles. And that is one of the best ways that you can actually slow down and sometimes even reverse aging. So hopefully that covered quite a bit, Dr. Rohantha. It is 7:10 and we can open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Dheena. Very interesting set of presentation and statistics you gave. A whole heap of questions is coming in. And the first question is that, how much of sleep should I get?
Very important question. So back in the 90s, they're probably not old enough to be around, remember. But in the 90s, if you all remember, they said 6 hours of sleep was enough. And today it says 9, we need 7 to 9 hours. So minimum 7 hours is what is essential for us to function healthily. But for those who are not able to even catch that, getting a small nap of around 20 to 25 minutes somewhere in the middle of the day can still be useful. But try to catch at least 7 hours of sleep at night.
Good question coming up. It says, there are days that I do a workout and I find that my body is hurting. Does that mean that I need to relax the next day to recover? Or should I continue my workout session?
Very good question and very relevant. So when you exercise, within 18 to 24 hours, there's something called DOMS, D-O-M-S, delayed onset muscle soreness, which is the soreness that you feel after exercising due to lactic acid, right? Which is very normal. So feeling sore is very normal, and working out with the soreness is actually recommended. But you should know when to listen to your body. Like, for example, if you have worked out 3 to 4 days continuously and you feel like you need a rest day, take it. But in the beginning, if you are starting to work out, feeling the pains and aches is very normal. So discuss it with the coach, because we don't know whether you're feeling the pain, which is the normal soreness, or if it's an injury. There's a difference. For example, if you did upper body, right, and you did some bicep curls, then if you're feeling the soreness on both of your arms equally, then that is just general soreness. But after, for example, doing triceps, for example, if you're feeling like this really excruciating pain on one side and you can point it with one finger, you might have to get it checked because it could be an injury. So that is something that with experience, you will learn to differentiate between the normal soreness versus the injury soreness. But in general, feeling sore after an exercise is very normal. And that is something you eventually get used to, because it means you have actually worked your muscles.
Question on chat. I've heard that we need to keep our mobile phones away from us at least 2 hours before our sleep. Any thoughts on that? And also, some are using mobile phones to keep the morning alarm, and it's also impacting our health, right? Over?
Yeah, again, good question. So it is true, in the sleep series podcast that I ran, the sleep coach as well actually recommends 3 hours. But let's be honest, most of us are on our screens almost till bedtime, right? So if you are somebody who is busy on your phone till the time you brush your teeth and come back before you get into bed, me telling you go off the phone 3 hours is not going to happen. That's extreme. Start slow, right? Start slow. Maybe start with just putting your phone away 15 minutes before bedtime, 20 minutes before bedtime, 30 minutes before bedtime. And then gradually build that until it's at least 1 hour minimum. 2 hours is great, because the blue light that comes through your screen actually has an impact on your brain, and the brain thinks that you're wide awake. It's kind of the feeling that you get when you wake up in the morning. And that's because, again, as a human, primitively speaking, we used to wake up with the sun and sleep when the sun would set. Right? So the brain still functions in that way, thinking soon as light is exposed to your face, it's time to get up and start your day. So if you keep looking at screens like we all are right now, the brain still thinks that the day is very active and like it's the time to get things done, which is why it's called the wind down. You have to have the sleep routine which helps you wind down to sleep, which is something that is similar to the sun setting and then starting to slow things down.
A good question coming up. It says, I do thrice a week skipping, and I do about 4,000 skipping a day. And I combine this with 2 days of weight plus strength training. Is this safe? Because I heard that some say that skipping is not good for your knees. Your view, Dr. Dheena?
Yeah, it really depends in the individual who's asking the question. What is your age? What is your joint health like? It really depends. I can't answer the question unless I know those background details. But in general, skipping is great. It's like a very intense cardio. It's good for fat loss and to burn fat. And if you're combining it with 2 days of resistance training, that's awesome. But the question is, are you getting the right nutrition with all this activity? That's very important as well. Because if you're training so much of skipping and resistance training, and if you're not eating enough protein, then you can be feeling very tired and you're not going to have the benefits of actually doing all of that. But yes, it can have an impact on your ankles and your knees. So you have to be careful depending on other characteristics that you may have.
There's another question. It's on chat. It says, which kind of protein is better, plant-based or animal-based? And of course, the question goes saying, how do we make sure that the balanced protein is available? I'm combining two questions, Dheena.
Okay. So again, different schools of thought. There's a whole pro-vegan movement happening where they're all about only going vegan. So vegans don't even have eggs and milk, and some even go to the extreme of not even having bees honey because it comes through an animal, like an insect. So the vegans can be extreme because they don't even have milk and eggs and bees honey, right? But vegetarians, most of them do have milk and eggs, and some of them are pescatarians, which means they only eat fish. So it's a whole spectrum again, right? So the answer is that there are certain proteins that are only found in animal sources of protein. You can have all the plant proteins that you want, but there are certain things which you can only get from animal protein. So in Sri Lanka, after having discussed this with some of my professors extensively, we actually encourage people to have some kind of animal protein, because in Sri Lanka, as much as it is a country with a lot of options, it's not very practical for the average person who's also busy and doing all of these things to be eating so much protein from plant-based only. So ideally, having a combination of both animal and plant protein would be ideal for you to get the essential proteins that you need.
A nice question coming up. It says, I'm used to a cycle of sleeping 6 hours, but you advised today that it should be 7 plus. How does this work if your cycle is different?
So again, how did this cycle start in the first place, right? Sometimes we have set alarms in the past to sleep for 6 hours, and now the brain has made that association and automatically we are waking up at that time. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is what our cycle is. It could be very well something that we trained ourselves to need. So what you can do is go to sleep, set the alarm 8 hours from the time you go to sleep, and see what time you're automatically waking up. Sometimes we tend to wake up at the same time. For example, I have had the experience of waking up at 5 or even 4 at some stage. And then what you can do is, in those cases, if you're waking up at 6, some of you, or 7, try going to bed earlier and seeing if you're still waking up at that time. So those are some of the ways in which you can adjust the time that you go to bed and wake up, and experiment to see what works best for you.
Another question, interesting, very practical question, Dheena. She's asking, what happens if I get 7 hours at different times of the day?
No, but then this 7 to 9 is actually the night sleep we're talking about. It's not advisable to have a large chunk of a sleep in the afternoon. It's not. In fact, if you sleep anything more than 27 minutes, it's not a nap. Your brain goes into REM sleep, which is deep sleep, and now your brain thinks you're going into the deep sleep of night. So when you wake up, you're going to wake up groggy. You're not going to feel fresh. And they have done some research on astronauts, and they experimented with different sleep times to find the perfect time of the nap. And what they found is that it is 27 minutes. So ideally, you want to sleep under 30 minutes if you're going to have a nap. If you go into like 1 hour, 2 hours, then it's going to really disturb your sleep cycle.
Okay. Last question, Dheena. It's a very interesting question. They're asking you, if you are an MBBS doctor, what made you get into this new area? Because normally people study hard and become doctors because you can earn more. What is your logic?
Wow, I love it. It's a very personal question. So when I was studying medicine, I question everything. I'm that kid who questions everything. I'm like can be a little annoying to the teachers as well. I would always have the question, like the question girl I was called. And then it came to a point where I realized that even with the pharmaceutical industry, sometimes you prescribe drugs with known side effects. For example, when a mother is giving birth to a child, there's a there is a case where her blood pressure goes up, and then the drug for that was causing psychosis. I hope this is not too sciencey for y'all, but it was like I couldn't accept that you're giving medication to a patient knowing that the side effect is causing them to get psychosis. So I question these things, and for me it was very difficult to be part of a system where you're prescribing drugs with the side effects and then giving other drugs for the side effects of the previous drug. So I decided to then take a preventive route, because I realized that a lot of patients are getting sick because of lifestyle diseases. For example, heart disease, hypertension, obesity, cancers. All this is mostly because of the way we live, the way we eat, our lifestyle. So from that standpoint, from a preventive point, if I can help prevent people from getting sick, that was my calling. So then I decided to specialize in nutrition further after going through medicine. I was even lecturing forensic for a while, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. So for me, it's all about prevention. And I feel like a lot of our Sri Lankans as well today, the busy urban people in Colombo, they can prevent so many diseases by making these small changes that I today shared with you all. Drink more water. Oh, we didn't speak about water. Hydration is so important. Yeah, we spoke about dehydration, but you should be drinking your body weight into 0.033. That's how much water you should be drinking. So most of you should be drinking 2.5, 3 liters, whereas most are just having half of that or less. So sleep, drink water, move your body, eat healthy, avoid junk food, basic stuff. But this is something I repeat on a daily basis like a chorus, because it just isn't practiced as much as it should be. So I hope I answered the question.
Last question, Dheena. The question is, if I lose sleep on one day, I know you said that it cannot be caught up, but can I pick it up another day by sleeping more?
No, but that is kind of contradicting. The question is self-contradictory, no? I mean, I just said
what the question is asking is, even though you said it, does that mean that you can pick up? Basically, they're asking, is it possible to sleep more than
like as social individuals, we are all going to have those nights. Like I have literally had that night last night because I was busy, like up doing something, deadlines. So we're all going to have those nights. You guys are like MBA students, and of course that's going to be there. Just realize that when that happens, you acknowledge that it happened, but don't make it a habit. That is the main thing. Like I know busy professionals and busy people in the corporate world, Monday to Friday, they're not sleeping properly. That is dangerous. Once in a while, if it happens, of course you can recoup it. It's really not a big deal.
Dheena, I think thank you so much for your time. Appreciate sincerely. I think this is our 110th MBA diary. I think that's going on. We have, I think, interviewed about the top 100 CEOs of Sri Lanka, which includes my boss, who is Lalit Dimel, who is the only Sri Lankan to have sat on a top 100 board in UK at Rakit Ben Kaiser. And then, of course, we've had ambassadors from Singapore, Sri Lankan ambassador in Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, UK, the current ambassador who has got selected as a top most diplomat this year. Likewise, but I think today's interview is fantastic and very, very useful. So I think you're one of the top 10 in this top 100 CEO category.
Oh, thank you.
Great to see you. And thank you so much. I mean, being an MBBS doctor out of Pakistan itself tells you, you're one of the top talent of Sri Lanka. So please continue your great work. And maybe our MBA team can invite you in person for one of their programs. Ruth, over to you.
if anybody wants to like keep in touch or get in touch, you can connect with me on social media. It's the same as my name, DRDHEENA, Dr. Dheena Sadik, on Instagram, on Facebook, and get in touch. And if anybody wants to get your nutrition assessed as well, you can come to the skin clinic because that's where I practice. And we can take it from there.
Thanks, Dheena. Over to you, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Dheena. What you have shared with us today is amazing. And like you rightly said, I'm sure for many, it's a wake-up call. The balance, the ratios that you've shared with us in terms of nutrition, in terms of sleep, in terms of fitness, I think for a lot of us, post-COVID as well, it is a wake-up call that we need to actually get out and get moving a bit more. We've been indoors for quite a long time, a little too much perhaps. So thank you so much. And I know you are in a rush as well. So to wrap up, I'd just like to remind our industry partners who are here that at APIT, we have a good internship program. And if at all you have any vacancies, please do share it with us. So with this, I'd like to thank our IT team for the technical support, our students, our alumni, industry partners who have joined us today. So till we meet again next time, take care. Good evening, good morning, good night from wherever you are joining us from. Thank you.